and welcome to another blood-soaked, shadow-shrouded, gore-laden episode of Edgelords.
I mean, what happened? The show where we profile the darkest, dankest, most diabolical video game disasters of all time. And this week, we'll be reaching once again into the dusty, embarrassing trunk of projects that never really actually saw the light of day, much like, say, StarCraft Ghost, which just so happens to have a playable demo out. Yes, I know, thank you. So, we're going to be shedding some light on the infamous and very fluid-encrusted fighting game known as Thrill Kill, a surprisingly technically ambitious PlayStation title that fancied itself as the most violent and taboo-destroying piece of media of all time. Anyway, we'll not only see the weird confluence of decisions that led to Thrill Kill's demise, but its very surprising origins and even surprisingly successors. This is going to be a wild one, I can tell you that for free. We start off in the coolest of the 1990s, 1995, when Paradox Development Studios was founded in Stockholm, Sweden, and wait, no, I'm very wrong. I was thinking of Paradox Interactive, another Swedish developer associated with White Wolf. I'm still wrong. It even says up there that it's not to be confused with. Here it is. Paradox Developments, founded in Los Angeles in 1994 by Christine Shu. 1994 was a cool 12 months as well. Alright, so Paradox was a brand new outfit who had their eye on Sony's then bleeding edge tech known as the PlayStation, and started working on concepts for a title called Earth Monster, which was a hearty mix of both fighting and sports, but seen through the lens of ancient Aztec culture. The game's rules closely mimicked Pak Tapak, which was a brutal ancient world version of basketball, and allowed players to tackle and roughhouse in the traditional midway sports style. The publisher Paradox had teamed up with for this project was Virgin Interactive, who had big plans for what they hoped would be a lucrative original IP. During the game's early development between 1996 and 97, producers at Virgin started asking for more and more fighting elements to be added, until they were just like, this whole sports ball thing is getting in the way of the fighting, so why don't we just drop it and just make it into a fighting game? And Paradox were all like, sure. Now, at this early juncture, the Aztec aesthetic still remained. It was violent, yes, but you played as these big slabs of beef, dismembering each other to appease their various gods. However, things took an edgier, more BDSM flavor after Earth Monsters had its first focus test, which basically amounted to...
Now, you each have a knob in front of you. When you like what you see, turn the knob to the right. When you don't like what you see, turn it left.
My knob tastes funny.
Please refrain from testing the knob.
When it was over, the overwhelming response was, okay, so you know what's hot right now? Mortal Kombat, blood, gore, and yabos. Slap some yabos in there, and don't forget about terribly dated representations of mental illness. Okay, so the Aztec look was out, but what was in? What inspirations would the team pull from now? Well, according to one of the main writers at Paradox during this time, Brian Gomez, I'll never forget when we had that meeting, when Harvard, a producer at Virgin, walked into the office with a big stack of fetish magazines, some German like Skin 2, a big cardboard box with some DVDs like BDSM stuff, and he said, "Boys, here's your new art direction." Now, this massive pivot in production was so sudden that the aforementioned Brian Gomez had to then quickly fabricate some type of context to all this craziness to try and make sense of the game's setting and narrative, since they lost the cohesiveness of the Aztec background. So, with very little time, he put together a scenario when the demoness Maruka gathered a few denizens of hell to fight in a kumite with another chance of life as the prize, which, oddly enough, is similar to the plot of Sega's own Eternal Champions, which Brian maintains was simply a coincidence. He instead admitted that the major influence was the musical Cats, which, when you think about it, is insane, but when you break it down further, it is also a competition to win the chance for a new life, only with everything being slightly more jellical. Anyway, Brian would be handed wacky character design after wacky character design, each one jumping out of the moldy old porn box they had in the office, and had to just suss out the details. They basically put it on me to explain everything. Why is this guy in a straitjacket? Why is this dwarf on stilts in a leather daddy costume? It was a lot to deal with. Now, despite all of that, the thing about Thrill Kill was that it was still super solid in terms of its mechanics and playability. It was indeed fun to be locked into an arena that looked like it was out of, say, Silent Hill, and fight another bloodthirsty weirdo, or two, or three. Yes, one of the technical hurdles that Paradox cleared was 4-player simultaneous fighting in a 3D engine, years before the likes of Power Stone, but was running on a PlayStation 1, which always lacked 4-player functionality out of the box. Now that's some good shit. Virgin Interactive cared not for the technical achievements though, and simply were desperate for a hit, and logically desperate for controversy. Thus, they would start to advertise the game as sleazily as they could, making even the snake oil salesman down at Acclaim blush with fury. This is because, at E3 1998, they had a big booth dedicated to Thrill Kill, and the two models they hired to dress up as the female characters, Violet, a sexy contortionist, and Belladonna, a sexy dominatrix, never bothered to show up. Undaunted, Virgin just hired local Atlanta strippers to fill the role instead, which might be the most 1998 thing I've ever heard. Their goal for the game, in terms of marketing, was to be awarded the AO rating, as this in and of itself would be a big positive badge of honor. The game everyone says you're too young/stupid to play! At least, that was the initial plan. Somewhere along the line though, as the game was finishing up development, Virgin started to run that shit the fuck back, and told Paradox they needed to tone things down to get a mature rating. This was most likely due to the Virgin higher-ups actually finding out that most big chains wouldn't even stock AO games, and that Sony themselves might not even allow it on their system. This of course led to some hilarious changes and a game of tug-of-war with the ESRB to get that big bold M. Dana Delala, a Paradox artist, through stifled laughter, recalls, "They wanted us to remove stuff, and some of it made sense. Belladonna had a kill move where we made it seem like she was giving the victim oral sex before killing them. Well, we changed that to just her tickling them. We had her moan when she killed people. That wasn't cool, so we limited that to just the start of a match. Initially, some characters in the game wore thongs, but the ESRB said you can't show that much ass."
What you doing out here with all this ass? Double cheeked up on a Thursday afternoon, hella ass.
So we gave them panty lines. Is this enough butt cheek covered? I couldn't believe what we were doing. We're now entering the what happened of this what happened. You see, Virgin Interactive were kind of bad at their jobs, and in the late 90s their profits were on a downtrend. Thus, the majority holder of the company, soap opera maven Aaron Spelling, put his share in the company up for grabs, citing its poor performance in 1996 and 1997. Now, here's another cool fact. Virgin Interactive also owned Westwood Studios. And I bet some of you are groaning already, as this is where our final player enters the arena. Electronic Arts purchased Westwood in late 1998 for a cool $122 million. But since Virgin was in the toilet at the time, EA basically got everything in the deal. They closed down Virgin and became the new de facto publishers of Thrill Kill. Now, you'd think the employees of Paradox would let out a groan you could hear from Orbit, but that actually wasn't the case. While it's difficult for many to shed the current view on Electronic Arts, the company published some very different stuff in the mid to late 90s. Skull Monkeys, Auto Destruct, Xena Warrior Princess, and Future Cop LAPD. So Paradox was fairly hopeful that EA, a strong financially successful company, would be the shot in the arm that Thrill Kill needed. They were the most wrong. Up until the acquisition by EA, Paradox were working to get the game to slide under the ESRB mature rated door, as it was literally weeks away from its advertised release date. Despite these efforts though, the project was never going to be something that EA would publish, and what's worse is that Paradox were the last to know about its cancellation. They essentially only found out Thrill Kill wouldn't be coming out by reading gaming websites, since no one at EA had contacted them beforehand. We read it on the internet. It's not a case of 6 guys in suits coming down from EA to let us down softly. They didn't even give enough of a shit to tell us in person. So, Thrill Kill was indeed killed. All that work and effort for naught because their new publisher couldn't even be bothered to alter the game further so it would better fit their portfolio. But wait, it gets worse. Thrill Kill had achieved so much underground infamy that several publishers all expressed interest in the publishing rights and contacted EA to inquire about picking up the title. The most aggressive offers came from EA rival Eidos Interactive, but in a heartbreaking but nevertheless predictable move, EA rebuffed all offers, refusing to sell the rights to anyone. This is because EA was changing its business strategy around this time, and also, even more around this time, there were new rumblings about video game violence affecting child behavior, despite there of course being 100% no scientific evidence to back that up ever. Rather than flirt with the whole controversy though, the higher-ups at Electronic Arts felt it best to simply bury the project, not wanting to hold any accountability for it whatsoever. Disappointed, Paradox did not allow this to stop them, as they were not owned by Electronic Arts as a studio, thank goodness, and could leverage what they did have, a solid 3D engine that could support multiple players. They immediately started to alter the base game, removing the sexual stylings and S&M bend they had learned from the porn box, but still keeping the violence, and made another title called Fubar, which played out much like the seminal, heartfelt Arnold Schwarzenegger tearjerker, The Running Man.
Ты сволочь!
Drop dead!
Чтоб ты подох!
I don't do
Нет,
requests.
по заказу я не выступаю.
During this pitching phase to various publishers, Paradox had heard back from a producer at Activision that they were interested in making a game based on East Coast rap legends, the Wu-Tang Clan, as they were exploding in popularity at the time. Now, in these early pre-Def Jam days, taking any musical group and trying to make an action fighting game out of them might seem insane. But since the Wu relied on the texture and stylings of Shaw Brother films, that martial arts influence played into the Thrill Kill engine wonderfully. Thus, Fubar changed to Wu-Tang Shaolin style. While Paradox were not convinced that this unusual mashup would pay off, with many of the staff not even familiar with the group's music, the gamble thankfully did, and Shaolin style became a rather underrated hit. Its success also started to influence all of Paradox's future work, which tended to revolve around fighting and violence. Things like the X-Men Mutant Academy trilogy, the Backyard Wrestling series, and of course, The Lion King: Simba's Mighty Adventure. This all led to their most famous title, which unfortunately also leads to their demise in a roundabout way. Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks, their second game with Shaolin in the title. This two-player action beat-em-up is viewed as the best spin-off title from any fighting game franchise, leveraging tons of nostalgia from the series, an incredibly fun combat system, and tons of unlockables. Hell, there's even a versus mode that plays a lot like Thrill Kill. Paradox were even then renamed to Midway Los Angeles, and a sequel was put into pre-production, known as MK Fire and Ice. However, when Midway ultimately folded, so did Paradox, as it was not a studio that Warner Bros. Had any interest in. There has been fan outcry for a sequel or a remaster, with Ed Boon also indulging in his yearly tradition of teasing a re-release of Shaolin Monks on his social media, only for it to result in fucking nothing. Anyway, most Paradox employees moved to either THQ San Diego and made the incredible WWE All-Stars before they were then closed, with the other half of Paradox moving to High Moon Studios, who were then also closed as well. Who fucking cursed Paradox? It's so interesting that despite being a title that was never released, Thrill Kill influenced all of Paradox's work from that point on. Hell, they even went from trying to emulate and supplant Mortal Kombat to becoming one of the best Mortal Kombat games of all time. But it's still a shame that this gaudy 90s as hell fighting game was never released. unofficial channels. Yes, while I'm sure some of you are aware of this, Thrillkill was leaked onto the internet, with a few physical copies also being in circulation. It hasn't been publicly revealed who at Paradox leaked the 100% completed build of the game, with them having braved a potential army of EA lawyers seeking retribution, but whoever you are, we salute you. And at the end of the day, it's nice to know that after 3 years of hard work and many console generations later, that players still have the ability to feel the thrill of the kill. And with that, if you know of any other video games, cancel or otherwise, with a horrible/weird developmental history, let me know in the comments below, or splash up some figurative blood on the walls of the Flophouse VIP Patreon, where you can nominate the subject of your choosing for a future episode of What Happened. See you next time, and thanks for watching.